The Standard Podcast, where we raise the bar, we rebuild the culture, and call out the lies or the shady area that no one else will. This isn't motivation, this is a movement. I'm Thomas Rowe with my co host and co founder, Aaron Sarles, and today we're sitting down with Jacob Harris, fifth year NFL wide receiver and Super Bowl champion with the Los Angeles Rams. From transitioning from soccer to football at UCF to winning a championship at the biggest stage to showcasing his talents in the UFL with the San Antonio Brahmas, is that it, in 2005? Yeah. Jacob's journey is about defying the odds, relentless perseverance, and providing the hard work and determination that can take you anywhere. We're diving into the truth behind what it really takes to build identity, discipline, and legacy in sports and in life. All right, let's get into it. Jacob, let's start here. Thank you so much for joining us. Super stoked and excited to be talking with you, especially with somebody who's had your journey. What does raising the standard mean to you, especially when someone had to fight for everything and every opportunity you have?
Yeah. I honestly, I don't know if like raising the standard, it's almost like falling back on what your values and beliefs are. I think it all starts from a young age, what you're taught, discipline wise. And if you're really committed to a goal that you're pursuing, right. I think that is where you see that big shift. Because, just looking back at, when I was playing soccer and, I had big aspirations and goals for soccer, it always just fell back to like the three things, like work hard, stay disciplined, and, being willing to sacrifice, things that a lot of kids were able to do, but I had a different goal in mind. So I wasn't able to do, certain things like go to a birthday party or go to an amusement park on certain weekends because I had a tournament. I think those little things are just what raising the standard technically would be to me, is, falling back on that foundation that was built. Because I can apply that to any goal that I'm pursuing, whether it's, with soccer, football, life after football, any career transition, just falling back on those core values and what's been instilled in me, I think is how I raise my standard and approach each goal.
Right on. I don't want to single out the NFL. Obviously, that's your experience. Yeah. We've talked to NFL players, NBA, Major League Baseball players, and I think that a lot of the times we as fans, we just kind of see the glamour and glitz of the sport. So when I say this, when I ask you this next question, it's a very loose question in the sense of, what do you think is the biggest quote unquote lie that you feel of the NFL system has sold athletes?
Definitely, the glitz and glam. Because I mean, even from the outside in, and even, I remember being a college player, like my perspective of the NFL was like, oh man, it's going to be like the dream. Like it obviously was the dream, but it's like, you just expect it to be like everything and anything. And then you're blinded by, how great it is. Right. It is a great league. It's a great dream to be a professional athlete, but you're blinded by that aspiration of, some of the negative stuff that can come along with it, and some of the hardships. I would say for me personally, I guess my experience with I guess quote unquote lie that you're being sold is, while you're in it, I mean, time just flies by. You don't know how fast opportunities pass you by. As growing up in athletes and sports, you're so used to getting, sometimes countless opportunities and whatnot. And when you get to that highest stage, I mean, those opportunities are far and few between. You have sometimes maybe one opportunity, or sometimes that opportunity isn't even in your hands. Maybe you're not relying on, but maybe that opportunity comes from maybe someone getting injured, or you just so happen to get signed by a team at the right time, the right fit, the right moment. And that opportunity, falls into your hand. But I think the biggest thing, is just being ready. But understanding that, and I've seen it too, not everybody gets equal opportunity. So it's not necessarily a fair system, but life isn't fair. But I would say that's probably the lie, is maybe expecting equal opportunity, equal playing field, where, you know, that may not be the case.
Sure. I mean, I remember we were talking to an athlete, a football player one time, an NFL player that said, it was a great quote. It said, if you're looking for right, just, or fair, you're in the wrong business.
Yeah,
right?
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, that kind of shed some light on it for us. How would you say that the lie showed up for you in your journey? I don't like using that word lie. Let's just say, how did the delusion kind of show up in your life from transitioning from UCF to the NFL or UFL, and what was the truth? What truth do you believe needs to replace it?
It's like a quote that you hear all the time, especially from vets. You know, when you first get in the league, is like the best ability is availability, and I'm definitely a testament to that. It can't be any truer. I remember going through, you know, my rookie year, and, you know, I tore my ACL, and then you know, was on a great path, you know, to recovery. Came back, you know, pretty strong for my second year, and I had no worries about. I was like, it didn't even cross my mind that I was going to get cut. I was like, no, you know, I was a drafted guy. I had some production my rookie year. You know, obviously, you know, that season got cut short from injury, but I was like, they invested in me. Like, they're going to at least give me, you know, the second year to kind of, you know, get healthy and show, you know, what I could do. And like I said, you know, best ability is availability. We had a rookie, undrafted free agent guy who was balling, and I mean, completely earned that spot. And unfortunately, I was on the chopping block and I got cut, and it was the first like blind side in the business where I was like, oh wow, you know, this is something that at least my second year I was like, man, there's no way that this is going to happen to me, and it happened. So it was like a wake up call. I would say that's that's the biggest one right there. Is just, you know, it never anything can happen at this level, and, you know, never get complacent or comfortable and feel like your spot's reserved. I mean, you're competing every day.
No doubt. Well, we're going to part of the podcast is we're going to tag team you. I took my first shot at you, and now Aaron's going to go after you a little bit.
Yeah, now the hard hitters come in. No, we would love to really get to know who is Jacob Harris beyond football, beyond the Super Bowl rings. You know, who are you? And then how do you define character, integrity, and discipline? Or how does that like play out in your life?
Yeah. You know, for me, integrity, discipline, it's just, like I said, it just falls back on, you know, how I was raised. You know, I was raised in a very Christian and Catholic family. So, you know, I fall back on, you know, that faith that I have. And, you know, it gets challenging, you know, every day. There's always something in life that's going to challenge that integrity and that discipline. So, I think, yeah, it's just falling back on that and then beliefs. You know, when I am facing, you know, a challenge or something that is, you know, going against that integrity, it's kind of, you know, looking inwards and being like, okay, before I make any rash decisions, how am I going to view this moment in the future? Like, how am I going to look back on this and be like, okay, I made the right decision. And I think it honestly just comes back to, you know, not being selfish all the time too. I think if, you know, we're taking the approach of how can we make others around us better, you know, from a family, like how can I make my sons better? How can I make my wife better? Take that to the field. How do I make my teammates better? You take an unselfish stance on stuff like that. I think you're always going to put yourself in the position of making the right decision rather than being selfish in the way we go about things.
I love that. I think that's so true, is like thinking beyond yourself. And I loved your reflection there of like, the choice I'm making, like I'm sitting in it, what's my integrity? And am I going to look back and go, yeah, I did the right thing there? Which
and we're not perfect either. I mean, there's definitely, I would say the most that gets me right now is honestly being a parent.
Good luck, man. Yeah. Good luck.
Parenting right now, because, you know, things happen quick, and like sometimes we just make such quick decisions, and then later on in the day, I'm looking back and I was like, man, is that the right thing to do, or should I have handled that differently? So, you know, that's also I think that's where I get challenged the most with being a parent right now.
Parenthood is a pressure cooker. Testing, having an 18 and a 16-year-old. Yeah, it's hard to slow it down because you're right.
Yeah.
Like there's opportunities to really, I think we want to reaction. We're so reactionary and we want to fix. And sometimes slowing down is the best medicine possible. So what does legacy beyond performance mean to you, especially when you think about navigating ups and downs, like league changes, constantly having to prove yourself? Like, what does legacy beyond performance mean to you?
I just think it means leaving like, a lasting impact. And it doesn't necessarily need to be an impact that, gets you credit, like as far as like to the known public. Like if I can walk away from the game, or even outside of the game in life, and like the people and teammates that I cross paths with, and be like, no, that was a great dude that we had in the locker room, or hey, Jacob was a great guy. He there's just someone that I enjoyed being around, and was able to get something. If I was able to be a positive impact, whether that's just being a good presence or being uplifting in any way, I think that's more of a lasting legacy for me as far as in the game. And then outside of the game, it's not being defined by my sport as, just football. I'm much more than a football player. And, being able to give back and, service. I think, I was talking with a good friend yesterday, and he put it a great way. One of the most fulfilling things that we can do is serve others. And I fully agree with that, because one of the most enjoyable things I did in my life so far is help coach high school ball back in 2016. And I didn't get anything out of it. I wasn't getting paid to do it, and it was some of the most fun I had, being able to coach and mentor these young kids. So I think that's a really highlight of it is how can we serve others.
Sure.
So what is one truth you wish every young athlete or aspiring pro understood?
Be in the moment. I mean, most guys that I'm able to talk with, or I've talked with in the locker room, athletes are pretty present, but also understanding like how quickly those moments come and go. So just be in the moment and enjoy every bit of that moment. There were some of the best times of football. They just go so fast. Even looking back at a young age, like I look back at club sports, and when I was young, before it really was like a business and everything like that, and enjoying like just the raw competitiveness of the sport without any no money involved, no politics, nothing like that. Just playing the sport. Enjoy those small moments. I
love that. That's so important. Yes, being present, enjoy every moment. Okay, Thomas, you're up again.
Okay,
your turn.
Yeah. So Jacob, I think that one of the things that we talk about a lot with athletes is if you could talk to yourself, your younger self, when you were getting recruited from high school to college, what would you share with that younger Jacob? And then the same thing from going from UCF to the NFL. What would you tell yourself, and when did you kind of realize that it went from being a sport and fun to a business and super serious?
So to tell my younger self, honestly, I would tell my younger self to keep doing what you're doing, because honestly, I wouldn't change. I had such a unique story and a unique path to how I got to where I got, where I wouldn't want to change anything. I used to say in college that I wish I started playing football earlier because I didn't start playing until my senior year of high school. So I always told myself, I was like, man, if I would have played, freshman year of high school, 4 years in high school, give me a head start. But now that I look back on it, I was like, you know what, I have such a unique story, and it really defines and shapes my legacy that we talked about earlier. That I wouldn't change that. But I will say my college self, I would I don't know. Yeah, my college stuff, I would try to, say don't be so hard on yourself. I think that was one thing that I did in college is, I put a lot of pressure on myself to perform, which, it was, what ultimately got me to where I needed to be. But I think at certain times I put too much pressure on myself to be perfect, especially, at the wide receiver position. You're not going to be perfect every time in any sport that you play. So I say, looking back at myself, I would tell myself not to be so hard and not critical. Be it's so easy to be understanding for others, faults, but then we're so hard on ourselves sometimes that, we put too much pressure on ourselves. I would tell myself that. And then, I noticed it being, a little bit of a business in college. I mean, definitely you have, being a walk-on in college, you see, okay, the perks that, the scholarship guys are getting, they get, fed meals, they get paid, for books, classes, and everything like that, where you got to do everything out of pocket as a walk-on. You don't get the same perks. So you kind of start seeing, a little bit of business side, but football, was still really fun. The first time where, it's truly a business is, the NFL. And I wouldn't say, my rookie year was so fun that, it didn't even feel like a business until, that second year, the first time you get the axe, you get cut, and you're like, oh, this isn't fun. but I think it was that I really struggled my second and third year in the league with the business side of football, and because things aren't going my way, and it's like, how do you still keep the game fun in order to do your job? Because at the end of the day, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, it's hard to do it. And especially with sports, it's such a mental battle that you really have to find. I think that's one of the biggest learning curves for me in the pro aspect is like, okay, understanding it is a business. Things aren't always going to be the way I want it to be. There's a lot that's out of my control, but how do I take it back to, this is a kid's game that I get paid to play, relax, just have fun. And that really started resonating really in 2024. And then this past, with the opportunity I had with Tampa Bay Bucks at training camp, I was, hey, weight was lifted off my shoulder. I was just having fun. And I didn't, maybe, I messed up on a play here or play there, but, at the end of the day, I enjoyed every single day I was out there on the field. And it just brought me back to, that being a kid, and what makes you fall in love with the game is enjoying it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, clearly, we've already established you've made it to the highest point. We've interviewed other professional athletes, and, you think about Dan Marino, Jim Kelly, Larry Fitzgerald. These guys are just legacies and Hall of Famers, but they never won a Super Bowl ring like yourself. Yeah. Do you feel like when an athlete wins a Super Bowl or wins a championship, what do those athletes need to do to continue to stay hungry? Or do you feel like some athletes are like, there it is, I hit the top, it's only down from there?
Yeah, that's an interesting, because it was such a interesting take as rookie year. Going and doing something that a lot of athletes dream of the first year in was awesome. I mean, like it was like a movie my rookie year. From being drafted to being able to start on special teams, make some plays out there, and win a Super Bowl. It's like, all right, what's next? But for me, it's just finding stuff to work towards. So one of the first goals I set after my rookie year was like, okay, let me make it through a whole season being healthy. That was one goal. And the next goal was like, okay, I made it to Super Bowl. Once you experience it, you want to be back. Like it's such a cool experience that, just one time is like, it's great, but it's like after you kind of get a little taste of it, you're like, okay, I want that again. So my other goal is like, I'd love to actually play this time, like be active, not on the sidelines, rehabbing an injury. Sure. So that was another goal. So I think that's the biggest thing as far as, when you go on, when you're a part of, championship team, it's like you set goals as far as personal goals and then team goals that'll help you there. Obviously, everybody's team goal is, at the highest level, win a championship. That's always the end goal. Any locker room you step into, if they're not trying to win a championship, it's not the right locker room to be in. And honestly, I haven't been in a professional locker room that wasn't the main goal. And then, the personal goals, I think, is what helps the team collectively reach those goals. If every guy, is setting a personal goal, they're not just out there just working or, running a route just to run a route. Like, okay, do you have a personal milestone that you're trying to get, a certain amount of yards, receiving yards? What are you trying to do every game? And sometimes it's great to set those because that's something we're working towards. You're not going to necessarily achieve it every time, but if you're setting that stuff for yourself, you're just going to make everybody else around you better. And I think that's what keeps the hunger alive.
Right on. Well, I'm going to turn it back over to Erin, where she's going to put you on the hot seat, and she's going to the rapid fire round. Go for it, Erin.
Yay. Yeah, this is my favorite segment. So I'm going to just say like a couple words, and I want you to finish my sentence. So discipline equals.
Discipline equals commitment.
Leadership equals
Integrity.
faith equals
Belief.
legacy equals
Impact.
Nice.
What's one thing you'd never compromise on?
My values.
And what's one message you'd put on a billboard for the next generation?
Find what you love to do and pour into it.
I love that. That's awesome.
Well, Jacob, before we wrap up, we always like to turn this over to the athlete and the one with the experience. Is there something we didn't touch on today that you feel athletes at any level need to hear?
Sure. I'd say the one thing is, obviously, everybody says is enjoy, what you're doing, enjoy the passion. But I guess really, what is it? That's a great one. I'm trying to think. If there's something I could leave that we didn't touch on, would be I'm stumped.
No problem. I mean, one of the things that, that really kind of stuck with us once.
Yeah.
We had another championship athlete like yourself on, and they said, just have fun. Enjoy the process, because it's about the journey, right? Because eventually it all comes to an end, and you're going to have to hang up your cleats. You're going to have to hang up your helmet at some point. So to have fun. And I think that that's a big thing when you're a fan and you're watching the game, you're like, God, these guys are having so much fun, but you don't realize that sometimes it's stressful for you guys. It's a business. And, and you never know if every day, like every play could be your last play, not just an injury, but at the end of we've heard guys that have come into the locker room, they've had a, great, all of a sudden they get traded. They're like, what just happened? It could definitely stump anybody and everybody. So, it sounds like your sentiment is also just have fun, enjoy the journey.
Yeah, definitely just have fun, enjoy the journey, and understand that you're gonna have ups and downs. But it's how we handle those downs that make the ups a lot better.
Right on. So as we close out, where can people follow you? I know that Erin and I are big fans of you, and we follow you. I mean, not just on LinkedIn, but where can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, Instagram and Twitter. My Instagram is Jacob L. I might have changed it. Let me see.
Yeah, get us the right one. Okay.
Yeah, my Instagram is Jacob Harris 87.
Love it.
And then I believe that's the same for Twitter. No, Twitter is just Jacob Harris. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram.
Awesome. And I'll include that in the bio that goes along with this. So I'll make sure I find them and make sure they're right. But Jacob, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. If this conversation challenged you, inspired you, or made you think differently, we have two things we want to ask you to do. One, share the episode with somebody who needs to hear it. an athlete grinding for their shot, a parent supporting their kid's dream, a coach building resilient players. And 2, we want you to connect with Jacob on Instagram and Twitter. Again, I'll give you the right handles, and let him know what hit you. His journey from soccer to the Super Bowl to the UFL is proof that perseverance pays off. And if you're an athlete, parent, or coach ready to raise your standard, check out Blueprint to Bluechip at blueprintbluechip.com. We help athletes build identity, discipline, and legacy that goes beyond the game. If you're ready to get clear on who you are beyond the game, join our free 5-day reset, also at blueprintbluechip.com. It's designed for athletes who are ready to rebuild their foundation. And if this episode resonates with you, take 30 seconds, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps us reach more athletes, parents, and leaders who need this message. This is a Standard podcast, and this movement only grows when we raise the standard together. Talent fades, but truth endures. Raise the bar, rebuild the culture, become the standard. We'll see you next time.
Awesome.
All right.